this edition of the MICAT regular press briefing via social media. And the state broadcaster is here, EMBC. There are hosts of other community radio stations that are relaying from EMBC. They are relaying the MICAT regular press briefing because this is a national podium where the government of Liberia speaks from on a bi-weekly basis. We are here bringing you real-time information on the activities of the government of the Republic of Liberia. We do so because information is key in all that we do. Of social media, where this information, fake news, are tools that are frequently at the disposal of every citizen for self-made. And so the government of Liberia, through the Ministry of Information, uses this platform to bring you real-time updates from all sectors of the government of Liberia. We think it is important that as part of our duty as the entity clothed with the responsibility to supervise and direct government communication, it is part of our duty to bridge the communication gap between the people and the government. And for that to be successfully accomplished, this platform, the MICAT regular press briefing, is most suitable for that. The other day we announced that as part of our efforts to take the government of Liberia to the people, the Ministry of Information, the Department of Public Affairs, and the Department of New Media and National Branding have derived a concept for what will be known as the government town hall. That government town hall will take the policy makers from this conference room to the people in their communities, so that we can have the opportunity to engage with them, get the views of the people, what they think about what government is doing, and that will even help to inform policy makers as to what's next step to take as we go about in the series of our dear country. So that program will be launched on the 25th of April. I read some story, it was good. It's good that you publicize our work, but we have to be very accurate on the timing. We said the 25th of April and not the 26th. We commend all of the news network that continue to lay stories from here, the MICAT regular press briefing. We appreciate you. Today's press briefing, the previous one will take the format of presentation by the speakers here, and will be followed by questions from our distinguished members of the folk estate that are always here helping us to reach as many audiences as possible. But let me just read you what we have today. The press conference will be jointly addressed by Honorable Edmund Ford, he is the Managing Director from the National Transit Authority. We also have Dr. Tia Sakibo, Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Ministry of Health, and Mr. Moses Zia, the second Director for Mental Health and Chair of the Team on Drugs and Substance Abuse at the Ministry of Health. You may recall that the President constituted a multi-sectoral task force to combat the spread of drugs and other dangerous substances in Liberia. The other day, somebody asked, what becomes of the task force? And the President said, they are here today to talk to you. So, Dr. Mo and Director Zia will provide updates on a multi-sectoral committee on drugs and substance abuse, while Honorable Ford from the National Transit Authority will provide you updates on the state of affairs of the NTA, the operations, and some of the good things that they are about to do. The other day, Minister Pierre did a detailed presentation on some very exciting updates from the National Transit Authority. Sometimes it's good to hear from the horse's mouth. While we speak for the government, it's also good that the policymakers themselves, those who are in charge of those entities, come here to talk to you. So Mr. Ford is here today, and you will be hearing from him. He intends to provide more information in furtherance to what was said here by Mr. Pierre a couple of days ago. Of course, Mr. Ford is accompanied by his deputies, my dear friend and brother, Mr. Loazal Gibson. When Dr. Moore and Dr. Scale mounts the podium, they will do a proper introduction of their team. I'm sure they are all here ready. But before we take the team from the Ministry of Health, we just want to throw light on some topical issues, some development that are taking place in the country. We heard that a high-level Chinese investment delegation is in the country. And before I provide the update, I just want to ask for your own attention. It's not healthy to see movement in the corridor when the press briefing is ongoing. So we just want to request your own divided attention. Let's seize the movement in the hall. Let's pay attention. See what's not paying attention. I said the program will be launched on the 25th, the public will say the 26th. So listening, you take your approach, then to be accurate in your approach. But the people who are listening to you, who is that? The people who are listening to you want accurate information. So sometimes they don't have the time to listen. They read your stories. When they read your story, the things you report, they tend to believe it. So you have to be very accurate in what you report. So please give me your own divided attention. You heard that a high-level Chinese investment delegation is visiting Liberia. All of these follow-up visits are tied to trips made by the president abroad. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced the arrival of a high-level 40-member delegation from the People's Republic of China. That delegation is led by King Yi Zhang, mayor of a sanctioned municipal people's government of Guangzhou Province. The 3-day official visit is scheduled to promote practical cooperation between Liberia and Shenzhen in key areas, including economic and trade investment, cultural exchange, and agricultural development. The visit comes as a direct outcome of a successful China-Liberia Trade and Investment Forum, which was held in Shenzhen in September 2024 on the margins of the Beijing Summit of the Forum on Africa-China Cooperation. So, when the president was in China, we announced that, look, there was a separate investment forum organized by the Liberian embassy in China. That investment forum was held in Shenzhen, and it brought together schools of investors. It is in furtherance of that investment forum that we now have this delegation in the country. And don't forget, that forum was held, that investment forum was held on the margin of the forum, the FOCA, the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. The overpass that should be built from the SKB Boulevard to the Ministerial Complex is also an outcome of the FOCA that President Bouhaka attended in September. So, the forum was organized by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs through a delegation of its embassy in Beijing, headed by Ambassador D. McKinney Thomas. The Dean of the Cabinet visit to China last year paved the way for discussions on increased collaboration in key sectors, leading to commitments from various Chinese municipalities, including Shenzhen, one of China's most dynamic economic hubs. A visit to Liberia by Major King and his delegation underscores the growing momentum in Liberia-China relations and is expected to set the stage for several bilateral cooperation which focus on trade, agriculture, and cultural collaboration. Specific discussions were centered on investment opportunities in Liberia's agro-processing sector, infrastructure development, and skills exchange programs, particularly in the areas of youth, innovation, and entrepreneurship. While in Liberia, the delegation will meet with senior officials of the government of Liberia, participate in high-level business-to-business dialogues, and visit selected sites of strategic interest for potential investment partnership. The historic visit by the mayor of Shenzhen and his delegation signals a new chapter in Liberia's diplomatic and economic relations with the People's Republic of China. Yesterday, the Environmental Protection Agency, in partnership with other entities of government, particularly the government of the city of Monrovia and the city of Painesville and the Ministry of Public Works, commenced demolition, strategic demolition of structures built illegally on the Monrovia wetlands. The Ministry of Public Works is working to ensure that the possibility of flood during the next rainy season can be significantly mitigated. Too often we experience flood during the last rainy season, very devastating ones for people who live in the city areas. And so as a government, we see the need to ensure that those who build illegal structure in the way can give way to the flow of the water. And so the Environmental Protection Agency, in collaboration with the City Corporation of Painesville, the City Corporation of Monrovia, the Ministry of Public Works, and the Liberia Land Authority, began a major demolition exercise targeting illegal structures all built on the wetlands, on the Monrovia wetlands. The exercise started on Wednesday, which was yesterday, and the specific area was the SKB Boulevard on the 777 page. The demolition focuses on removing makeshift structures and buildings that have encroached on key waterways and wetlands. More so, the exercise is part of an initiative aimed at addressing long-standing environmental and infrastructure issues caused by unregulated construction, which has blocked major waterways and severely disrupted storm water flow. We have to do it to ensure that people are protected from the disaster of flood. If you do not create ways for the water to run, the water to move on the rainfall, it will cause disturbance for you. So as a government, instead of waiting for the damage to occur, we are taking a preemptive stride to ensure that nature does not fight back. And we call on the public to support this initiative. The Ministry of Education has signed a $2 million grant agreement with the European Union and the UNICEF. The grant is intended to strengthen Liberia's education management information system, the EMIS. The EMIS is expected to significantly improve Liberia's ability to collect, analyze, and neutralize reliable education data, an essential step in enhancing learning outcomes for students across the country. Enhancing learning outcomes for students across the country, the initiative will directly support the Ministry of Education EMIS vision and benefit the Ministry of Youth and Sports, especially in the areas of technical and vocational training, TVET. Additionally, the EMIS will close the information gap in Liberia's TVET sector and often overlooked in national data efforts. The initiative aims to build a complete picture of TVET across the country by tracking enrollment, graduation, employment outcomes, and resource allocation. The agreement marks one of those critical milestones achieved by this government since 2024 in our drive to build a modern and responsive education system. Lastly, before we take the Ministry of Health, we'd like to say something about, hello. Every journalist assigned to the Ministry of Information was sent here by a case law institution. We do not want to instruct our people to ask people out. When you come to the press conference, you have the obligation to put your gadget on silence. How do you feel when the speaker is speaking, your phone ringing? I mean, there are some things you're not supposed to be told. Just put your phone silent. We are following very closely the activities of the Asset Recovery and Property Retrieval Task Force. There are people who try to politicize every good thing that will happen for this country. We cry every day that people see government as a come grab and go business. We say people come to government to steal. The government set up tax force to retrieve stolen assets. And there are some who want to politicize it. They invite you, you say you can't go there. And some of them even have the audacity to call on public talk show and say, I will not go there. Let me say to you, the country is a country of law. And when the authorities invite you as a person of interest, you have no choice but to comply. If you don't comply, we use the full weight of the law to compel you. It will not be done arbitrarily. The government will use the full weight of the law to compel you. We don't call names, but there are people who are on radio saying, I will not go there. If you don't go there, there are other remedies available to the task force. But how do we want to be the country that appears just going a vicious cycle? People come to government, they are accused of committing acts of corruption, they come and come for you, so you can't go there. Meanwhile, there are the same people who sit on the talk show every day and say the government is not doing nothing for corruption. So let me put it the other way around. The president, who is the commander-in-chief, head of state, and head of government, constituted a task force to retrieve stolen properties, stolen assets. One group of people felt disenchanted. They went to the court. For 9 months, that case was lingering in the court. And the asset recovery task force painstakingly held on, because the court placed a prohibition on all the activities. So in terms of government, as an executive, we will not say, oh, the president got a regular task force, and even though the court say do not move, the president will tell them to move. How will you look at the government? How will you picture the government? What will be the insinuation that the government does not respect the court, right? So they waited. They went through the legal, how you call it, rigmarole. The case has been adjudicated. The rights of the task force to operate within the territorial confines of Liberia was restored. So who are you to say that you can't go there? The same right, the same way the asset recovery task force painstakingly went through the court process, which is required by law. Nobody should be seen as they are above the law in the country. Nobody should be seen as they are above the law. If you do not want to say that to us, so when they invite you, just go there. So here's what I have to say. The Asset Recovery and Property Retrieval Task Force announces the commencement of investigation on 26 high-profile cases involving theft, misapplication of properties, and economic sabotage. The investigation on one of these 27 cases has been completed, and the Asset Recovery and Property Retrieval Task Force will move to proceed in accordance with the laws of Liberia. And I showed you what that means. On the case involving Anita Group of Companies or Gracious Ride, the person of interest in that case, the former chief of protocol, Madam Monrovia, decided to waive her right to the investigation. Our lawyers wrote, replied the task force invitation and said that they cannot appear. The action of a lawyer has left the Asset Recovery Task Force and Property Retrieval team with no option but to invoke Article 21 of the 1986 Constitution of the Republic of Liberia and Sections 2.1 and 2.3 of the Criminal Procedure Laws of Liberia. The Asset Recovery Task Force further informs the public that investigation on Madam Laura Finlabono and other corporate members of the Anita Group of Company and Gracious Ride, who were similarly invited, has been closed based on the communication initially mentioned. Meanwhile, investigation on other persons of interest involved with the Anita Group of Companies and Gracious Ride continues. One of the promises that propelled His Excellency President Waka to the presidency of the country is his anti-corruption agenda. Nobody, absolutely nobody, is going to impede or attempt to stand in the way of the government from executing her agenda. The government has reiterated a zero tolerance stance on corruption. Our invitation is not a death sentence. We are all leaders of the country. You were here yesterday governing this country. You play a role If you think you are so proud of what you did, go and answer for your action. Do not be recalcitrant. Do not be abrasive. Go and answer for your action. Nobody is waiting you. It's a servant who is in court. He has won some emotion he has lost. What we are interested in as a government is to establish the truth. It's to establish the truth. That's why we're not going about it arbitrarily. All of the processes, the procedures laid down on our laws are being followed. We beg members of the public, we beg political commentators not to politicize anything regarding the fight against corruption. We all must bear in mind that this country has been significantly victimized by corruption. So when a government is taking one step to fight corruption, as a country and as a people, we ought to support it. With that being said, let me now invite, I don't know, the team from the Ministry of Health, maybe that is here or that is Saki first. You have the platform. You will speak. That will be followed by the Managing Director of the National Transit Authority. Then we'll take questions and you respond. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honorable Ministers, Father Governor Official President, members of the Fourth Estate, ladies and gentlemen. I bring you greetings from the Honorable Minister of Health, who is the chair of the Multi-Sectoral Committee on Drugs and Substance Abuse, the Honorable Dr. Rosemary Otto. She extends her warm greetings or regrets for absence due to an emergency needing for immediate attention. We have asked that I lead a team on behalf of the Ministry of Health to provide an update on the workings of the Multi-Sectoral Committee on Drugs and Substance Abuse. Delivering the update today on behalf of the committee is Dr. Moses Zia II, who is the Director of Mental Health at the Ministry of Health and also the Chairperson of the Technical Working Group on Drugs and Substance Abuse. Other members of the team include the Director of Communication of the Ministry of Health and his principal deputies and his apostles worker. And we also have representatives from the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency. We have Mr. Orlando Dile, he's the Public Relations Officer of the DEA. And we have Mr. Joe Dewey Jr., who is a consultant at the LDEA. Before Dr. Zia can take the podium, once again, I'm Dr. Tia Sakimo. I'm the Deputy Chief Medical Officer of the Republic of Liberia, representing the Ministry of Health on behalf of the Honorable Minister. Dr. Zia, the podium, please.
Honorable Ministers, fellow government officials, members of the press, fellow Liberians, good afternoon. My name is Moses Zia II. I am a medical doctor and a psychiatrist by specialty, and I currently head the mental health unit at the Ministry of Health as its director. I also chair the technical working group, as was mentioned by my boss, Dr. Mo. The technical working group is a group that constitutes technicians mostly from diverse backgrounds, and these technicians together help with the development and eventual implementation of interventions as it relates to the fight against drug and substance abuse. So on behalf of the multi-sectoral committee on drug and substance abuse, I would like to provide some updates from this task force and to keep you up to date with our current activities and happenings. So we will begin quickly by giving a background of this committee. We can recall that in January, specifically January 29, 2024, the President of Liberia, in his first State of the Nation address, declared the issue of drug and substance abuse a national health emergency. The President then established and of course announced a task force during that same speech, which constituted a number of agencies, including the Ministry of Health as its chair, the Ministry of Justice as co-chair, the Ministry of Youth and Sports, Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, Ministry of Finance and Development Planning, and of course the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency. Those were other members announced on the committee. This committee was announced with the mandate to design and implement a holistic intervention to tackle drug and substance abuse. So from the get-go, the committee convened under the able leadership of its distinguished chair, the Honorable Minister of Health, Dr. Louis M. Poto, and was able to expand the committee beyond what was announced by His Excellency President Waka. The need for expansion became apparent once the committee met and found out that there were other major stakeholders whose presence were needed to implement the President's mandate. So other colleagues or other agencies that were added to the committee included the One UN, represented by specific agencies like the United Nations Population Fund, this is the UNFPA, the UNICEF, the WHO, UNDP, and of course the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime. Other agencies of government, including the Ministry of Education, as well as Ministry of Information, Ministry of Internal Affairs, all received invitation to join the task force, as the fight against drug and substance abuse is a national fight that requests or demands the input of everyone around the table. Part of those included in this committee also were civil society organizations and their representations, as well as community-based organizations. So based on the expansion of the committee, a technical working group was established by the leadership of this multi-sectoral committee. The goal of the technical working group was to bring together technicians and technical personnel from all these relevant agencies, including those from the private sector, so that together we would have devised and implement interventions that will tackle drug and substance abuse as a country. This technical working group has been working since the inception, and are proud to announce that we've been able to develop major strategic plans and work plans which today guide the interventions being provided by the government of Liberia. The technical working group, in its quest to devise a holistic intervention, was able to call all relevant agencies to design and develop a national work plan, which upon its completion was termed National Drug and Substance Abuse Program, NADSAP for short. The work plan includes specific activities from all 9 ministries and agencies, as well as other partners and stakeholders, including the One UN, through the UN Peace Building Project that is also currently ongoing. This work plan proposes a holistic prevention of substance abuse, and has two major pillars. The pillars include supply reduction. The target of this pillar is to target suppliers, that's the goal rather, to target suppliers of illicit substances, and they include drug dealers and traffickers, as well as importers. The essence of targeting them is to block the entry of illicit substances into our country, and also to prevent the production of these substances in country. Our colleagues from law enforcement, under the leadership of the Ministry of Justice as co-chair of this committee, is providing leadership to ensure that the supply reduction arm of our intervention is strengthened and that we use the full force of the law to implement the strategies that were designed. So our law enforcement agencies mainly lead the aspect of supply reduction, and we know that the LDEA, the Ministry of, the Liberia National Police, the Liberia Immigration Services, and all of that, all of the other groups in law enforcement are being headed by the Ministry of Justice. The UN has also been providing support to the law enforcement officers to implement supply reduction. The second pillar of the intervention is demand reduction. And on the side of demand reduction, the goal is to target potential users and users of these illicit substances with the goal of preventing the initiation of substance use among our young people, at the same time to provide treatment for people who already have substance use disorders. So under the leadership of the Ministry of Health, other agencies are being collaborated with, including the Ministry of Youth and Sports, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Justice, and other colleagues to help this fight of reducing the demand of psychoactive substances. Simply put, we are dealing with a drug crisis, and drug is a market. So there's a supplier who makes sure to have commodity to make money, and there's a buyer who has to buy in order to keep the supplier in business. The goal is to target both fronts. Target the supplier to make sure that there's no commodity being provided, and then also target the potential users who are the buyers to make sure that they are not buying. And if they are not buying, it is natural that the seller will go out of business and the crisis will be averted. Against this background, permit me to take you through updates and significant accomplishments since the inception of the committee. I will begin from the side of supply reduction, and I will outline specific accomplishments from the different line ministries and agencies. And then eventually, we will outline some of the activities that are ongoing. So starting with the Ministry of Justice, major accomplishments so far have been, one, they've been able to coordinate the entire joint security to reinforce efforts aimed at supply reduction. So they've been able to mobilize all the agencies we've talked about in order to strengthen the efforts in reducing availability of psychoactive substances in our country. The second major thing they've done is the distribution of the drug law. So we are aware that there is an amended drug law that seeks to increase penalties on people who are involved with drug crimes. And so when the law is passed and without distribution, it becomes difficult for people and implementers or executors of the law to be able to deal properly with perpetrators or would-be perpetrators. So the Ministry of Justice have been involved with the distribution of the drug law, and as at this moment, they've been able to print and distribute over 1,000 copies of the amended drug law to law enforcement agencies, including the agencies we mentioned, as a means of creating awareness among the security institutions about the law and its applicability. Next, for Ministry of Justice, they are in the process of developing the legal framework for what we call alternative to incarceration. This is a concept as it relates to treating people with substance abuse. We know that our law says possession, use, and dealing of illicit substances is a crime. And so at the moment we see at the street corners and everywhere that there are people actively using drugs, and of course they have those drugs in their possession. The issue now is some of these people, many of them actually are users of the drugs, and that means they are victims. And at that point in time, they are actually sick and they need help. So if the law will take this course to arrest those who possess drugs, then what happens to the person who is using the drug and is sick? There must be option for treatment. So the alternative to incarceration is a recognized intervention which helps people who have been arrested for drug crimes to find an alternative to seek treatment instead of being incarcerated, instead of going to jail. So instead of arresting all the guys in the street to carry them to jail, why don't we arrest them and find out whether some of them are intending to seek treatment? And so this legal framework will make it easy for us to implement such an intervention, so that when people are arrested, they can be channeled properly through the legal system to seek treatment instead of going to jail. So the Ministry of Justice is currently developing a legal framework for the committee. We now move to the LDEA. For the LDEA, the major accomplishments have been deployment of officers. 1. Since the inception of this government and since the establishment of this committee, the LDEA has significantly increased its workforce and has been able to deploy LDEA officers at all international borders as well as across the 15 counties. This move is intended to increase the search of people who are dealing drugs and people who are making drugs available. And as a testament of this move, we have seen the number of arrests of drug traffickers and dealers. The second thing the LDEA has been able to do is to provide training for over 450 officers in several areas. And those areas of training include border management and patrol, vehicle search, maritime security reporting, cybercrime security, financial intelligence, etc. When the officers are fully capacitated with the requisite knowledge and skills, their performance increases. So because of this, capacity building is one of the major things that the LDEA has been able to do. The next is drug awareness. So the LDEA, like many of the other agencies, as we will hear, have been involved in conducting drug use prevention awareness. So they've been able to conduct awareness in schools, religious centers, workplaces, communities, etc., targeting over 10,000 young people over the time in consideration. They've also been able to erect 7 giant-sized billboards in 4 counties, and this is against the goal of raising awareness and educating people about drugs. The next thing they've been able to do is drug seizure. So the LDEA, for the time under consideration, have been able to seize several consignments of cocaine, heroin, kush, tramadol, cannabis, and the precursors, amounting to the total street value of about 5.5 million United States dollars, which is equivalent to over $1 billion Liberian dollars. So we have been in the space and we've seen the number of times that seizures have happened, and they've been reported in the media. The next thing LDEA has been able to do is the destruction of cultivation. So the LDEA over the time past have been able to destroy cannabis farms in 3 counties. Those counties include Lofa, Nimba, and Grand Juda. Cannabis also is the most commonly used illicit substance worldwide. And in Liberia, it is one of those substances that can be grown. So when we talk about preventing production, this is one of the intention. And the LDEA has been very steadfast in being able to destroy farms in these 3 counties that we mentioned. Finally, for LDEA, they've been able to prosecute drug crimes. So as at this moment, the LDEA has been able, working with the legal system, to convict and sentence up to 25 defendants for periods ranging from 1 to 20 years. Those 2 entities mostly carry on supply reduction activities. And those updates are mostly targeted towards supply reduction. Now on the side of demand reduction, I'd like to start quickly by providing an understanding of what drug abuse is so that we can have the conceptualization of what we are dealing with and how the Ministry of Health is proceeding. So substance abuse is also called substance use disorder or drug use disorder. And in medicine, every time you hear a disorder, it means it's like a disease. And so when we talk about drug abuse or substance use disorder, we're actually talking about a chronic relapsing brain disease. Chronic means it can linger around for a long time if left untreated. Relapsing means even if we treat it, it can recur. Those characteristics of substance abuse make it quite difficult to treat people with drug abuse. And it makes it quite expensive to treat people with drug abuse. We therefore need to employ evidence-based treatment approaches that will be used to help people who are already dealing with drug abuse. I also like to provide understanding of how people eventually become dependent on drugs. So usually the use of a drug starts with what we call experimental use. And it means sometimes hanging out with your friends, being with other people, you might just want to try it to know how it feels, and that is experimental use. Now after experimental use, you can progress to what we call occasional use. For occasional use, it means that every time you're in a gathering or every time you're in a certain situation, you use it. So if it is on parties, that means every time you go on party, you're going to use the drug. And the number of parties you attend will be equivalent to the number of times you are likely to use the drug. So you realize that you are progressing. The next level is what we call regular use. Regular use is wherein you still have control of how you use the drug, but it has become part of your routine somehow. And you are using it more frequently. Then eventually you get to the point of being dependent on the drug, and we call that dependence. Dependence is wherein you lack the control of the drug use, even though you're having significant social, interpersonal, and employment difficulties or school difficulties, but you continue to use the drug. So people today, we call drug addicts in the street, are people who are now dealing with substance use disorder because they are dependent. So this understanding helps us to navigate how we can provide intervention to people. Okay? Against this backdrop, I'm glad to announce that the Ministry of Health has been able to design what is called the Comprehensive Prevention Intervention. And this intervention has 3 levels of prevention. The first level is what we call primary prevention. The goal is to target young people and people who have never used drugs before so that we encourage them, educate them about the danger of drug abuse so as to discourage the use of drugs ever. So we don't want them to even try it. That is primary prevention. So the problem doesn't exist. That's number 1. Number 2, there are people who are already using the drug. They may already be dependent, but they may have some level of functioning. For example, they are still able to be in school. They are still staying at home and they can do some work. They can function. but they are now using drugs more frequently and they are losing control. Those people may have what we call mild to moderate substance use disorders. Those ones need to be treated immediately so that they do not progress to a more severe form of the disease. And then finally, we have the tertiary prevention. For tertiary prevention, these are people who already have severe substance use disorders. Those are the typical guys you see in the streets, in the street corner, in the ghettos, in the graveyard. They have severe substance use disorder. They've lost complete control of the use of substance, and that means without help, it is almost impossible for them to live that life or live where they are. We have to be able to provide treatment for them as well. So for the Ministry of Health, the intervention is going across those three levels. So what are we being able to do for the time past? Let's talk about the activities of the Ministry of Health. Number one is capacity building. It is very important to educate people about drug abuse, and those who are supposed to provide intervention should be educated to understand the effective and evidence-based interventions that work. Otherwise, everybody wants to help people with drug problems, but they do not understand what they're doing. And that is the sad reality for what we have in Liberia. We've been able to work closely with individuals and organizations that have been providing some help. They have the intention, they have the desire, they have the goodwill, but they do not have the knowledge and understanding of what to do. So capacity building is one of the major aspects of our work. And over the time past, we've been able to train 75 individuals in drug use prevention, as well as treatment and recovery management. And those are specific areas that need adequate knowledge, from service provider so that they can be able to provide interventions that are evidence-based. So these trainings have been internationally recognized trainings, and a number of these beneficiaries have obtained international credentials, which they can use to work anywhere around the world in the drug addiction space. So we've been able to train those number of people in those three areas. We've also been able to provide training to private service providers, like those people who have their private NGOs and they are treating people with drug problems. We're able to work with them to bring their technical members and technical team and to train them so that they understand what drug abuse is and how they can treat appropriately. On a more sustainable note, we are currently in the process of developing a master level curriculum at the University of Liberia, College of Health Sciences, that's the master program, so that we can begin training people who are addiction specialists in country. This is aimed at providing higher level knowledge and understanding and building a workforce on a sustainable basis that will go beyond the moment and be able to provide competent team of individuals who can treat people with drug abuse. The next thing from the Ministry of Health is drug information system. The Ministry of Health is also challenged, like many agencies, with data. Although we see by anecdotal evidence walking in the street, the number of people who we see using drugs or who we see by the street corners, but we do not really have the number to make a case to national government that this is the percentage of people using drugs and these interventions have to target this population. We really cannot make the case much. Data that we have available to us are mostly brief surveys and mapping data, one of which currently projects or estimates that about 2 in 10 young people in this country are abusing drugs. And if you look at the recent statistics from the latest, which says about 75% of this country's population is made of youth, and we are seeing about 20%, 2 in 10 of them are abusing drugs. We are talking about a significant number of people who are using drugs. Now, in order to galvanize and generate data, we want to build a drug information system. So with support from the United Nations Office on Drug and Crimes, we are currently in the process working with all agencies, all institutions that are providing treatment for people with substance use disorder, as well as the government facilities, so that we generate data that will be collated into a central system for easy reference, policy making, and for implementation purpose. Next, the Ministry of Health has been involved with substance use awareness as well. And this is one thing I believe we all have seen. Almost every other day, you see something on drug abuse on the platform of the Ministry of Health. We'd like to appreciate our able team of communicators, headed by Mr. Walker, who has always been publishing the work we've been doing. We continue to conduct substance use prevention awareness in schools, in religious centers, in communities, on social media, on the radio, television, and wherever we can. And with this intervention, we've been able to target hundreds of thousands of individuals with the message, emphasizing the danger of drug abuse and the need to prevent substance use, especially among our young people. As we speak, there are ongoing community engagement activities in 5 counties. So Monrovia and Grand Bassa have community engagement activities that are happening by the county health teams. And Bomi, Wapolu, and Grand Cape Mount right now have a team from Central who are joining the local team to conduct massive substance use prevention in major areas like the schools, the communities, major city centers, as well as the border between Sierra Leone and Liberia. We know that it has been said that the source of push in this country is from Sierra Leone, and so we are making a lot of effort in Western Liberia to sensitize the population and to encourage them to prevent drug use. We also have activities coming up in the next few weeks, and we'll be going to the remaining 10 counties with messages of awareness. On the side of treatment, we've been able to rehabilitate up to 120 individuals and successfully reintegrate them into society. And that happened early in 2024 as a team of people who were already in treatment from the previous year were able to complete their treatment and were reintegrated. Currently, we are collaborating with one of the local organizations, and this organization has a standing memorandum of understanding with the Ministry of Health since 2019 to provide rehabilitation treatment or services for Liberians. So we are utilizing this collaboration and memorandum of understanding to begin treating people with drug use disorders. So we are now providing free treatment for anyone who seeks treatment. Okay? So right now we have 3 outpatient centers. Outpatient centers means areas where the people can come. We are able to assess them and determine the kind of treatment they need, and then we can plan their treatment and start to work with them. So we have 3 centers. One is in Congo Town. One is almost ready. It's at the MVTC compound along the Japan Freeway. And one also about to be fully operationalized is in Buchanan City, around the county health team office. So these centers are available to treat people who have substance use disorder problem or people who are abusing drugs and they want to get treated. At the moment, we have one inpatient center, and the inpatient center is a place where people who have more serious drug abuse problem can be taken for a period of 6 to 9 months to be rehabilitated. So, in collaboration with the Mother of Life Rehabilitation Center, we currently have one facility available on the Buchanan Highway in a place called Germantown, and we are providing treatment. We want to encourage the public and all Liberians to reach out and motivate people to come into treatment. At the end of this briefing, we will share with you what we prepared. This is more like a helpline. So we will disseminate it and we can reach out in our various communities to encourage people to come for treatment. It is one thing to set up the treatment, but there's another thing to have people coming for treatment. So we intend to put our efforts together to have people coming. As part of the inpatient treatment we are having in Grand Bassa, we are also providing vocational training for beneficiaries there. Areas like agriculture, tailoring, basic computer skills, soap making, landscaping and decoration, as well as building construction are basic skills that people in treatment are gathering. The goal is to help them, give them life skills and skills that they can use to become productive upon their reintegration into society. So currently, we have over 75 individuals enrolled into treatment, both in the outpatient setting and in the inpatient setting, which is the rehab on Basa Highway. So the headlines are here, like I said, we'll disseminate. And so maybe for those listening, I will read that. So 0773 677 40. So that's the first number. The second number is 0881 950 663. Then finally, for the Ministry of Health, we have infrastructure. The Ministry of Health currently is renovating a clinic in YATC, that is the Youth Agriculture Training Center in Bensonville. We are renovating a clinic and one dormitory to be used at the second rehab after the one in Grand Bassa. Also, on a more sustainable note, the government of Liberia is funding 100% the construction of a national neuropsychiatric hospital. Meaning this is a hospital that's going to treat people with mental health problems as well as people with substance use disorders. And that is on a more sustainable note. Quickly, for the Ministry of Youth and Sports, they've been involved in all of this work. They've been involved with providing basic vocational skills for people who are in treatment. So these vocational skills that we mentioned, they are being provided in collaboration with the Ministry of Youth and Sports. The Ministry of Youth and Sports has also been able to support rehabilitation centers. So they've been able to work with some of the private service providers to distribute food and non-food items to several rehabilitation centers and safe homes where people with substance use disorder directly benefited. Then on the side of reintegration, they've been able to reintegrate over 120 individuals who then completed rehabilitation and are now reintegrated into society. They were also able to provide empowerment opportunities to them by the provision of 2 kits. So those who did basic, vocational, who acquired the basic vocational skills, whether it's tailoring or building construction, they receive 2 kits that will be more of a starter as they reintegrate into society. For infrastructure, the Ministry of Youth and Sports is also currently renovating one of the buildings at the YATC in Bensonville to be used as the female dormitory. So all of these efforts are aimed at providing more treatment centers so more people can get treated. They are also renovating the MBTC space where we're supposed to use for outpatient treatment. On the side of Ministry of Gender, they've been providing social services. So they've been providing family integration services for people who benefited treatment and are now reintegrated. So they were able to link them with family and eventually get them back in their various communities. They also continue providing child protection services. So for example, some of the beneficiaries of this program, people who are going into treatment, some of them women who have children, the Ministry of Gender have been facilitating how to take care of those children. They've also been involved with taking children from the street because those young people in the street are directly exposed to drugs, and by taking them out of the street, we are able to avert whatever potential danger that may have come their way. Ministry of Education has been helpful in collaborating with us to ensure the school-based awareness. And then currently, we are developing a school manual, and this is more of an educational material that will have everything about drug abuse as well as mental health, so that we are able to teach our children really early the dangers of drug abuse. This manual is nearing completion. When completed, will be incorporated into our national school curriculum, and it will be taught as part of the basic lessons that students learn. And it will be so simplified that people as young as 7 years old can be able to comprehend the content therein. Finally, we talk about the Ministry of Finance. Of course, they have been providing financial resources for us from government, and also the UN, through their different agencies, they continue to support the various government ministries and agencies to ensure the implementation. They've been helpful, the UN, being helpful to provide vehicles, medications, provide some funding for some of the awareness campaigns that we are having. They've been able to sponsor trainings, as well as support some of the rehabilitation efforts that we're undertaking. So this, I know, is quite comprehensive, but but we intended to provide you as much of this information as possible on behalf of the committee, since this is our first time addressing the nation. So on behalf of the technical working group, by extension, the multi-sectoral committee on drug and substance abuse, I would like to say thank you for listening, and I will stop to entertain questions and comments afterwards. Thank you.
Thanks to Dr. Zia and his team. Very detailed report. Like he indicated, this is the first time since the president constituted the committee. This is the first time here. So of course it is understandable that they have been more detailed in what the work, in explaining the work they're doing. We just want to say thank you, but please do share the information with us, the report, because the journalists here will need it so that they can know the stories. With that being said, let me now invite to the podium the managing authority, Honorable Edmund Forford. And then after that, we will take questions from you, the press. Please, I'm pleased to welcome to the podium Mr. Andy.
Good afternoon, honorable ministers and other guests, members of the press, our audience in Radio Land. Let me say a big thank you to the Ministry of Information family for allowing us to use their platform to inform our people on the activities of the National Transit Authority. I was rightly said by Minister Sino. I'm Edmund Ford, the Managing Director of the National Transit Authority. I came with my Deputy Managing Director for Operations, Honorable Noah Gibson, and my Director of Communication, Mr. Abiyomi Santi. Sometimes in August last year, we were here and we told you the condition in which we met the entity. We do not intend to repeat that. We promise what we intended to do to move the institution from where we met it to a greater height. And so those are things that we think we'll be discussing with you. Prominent among some of those things that we said we were going to do was to first restore those lost years of the entity, bring it back to what it's supposed to be. We did that in the first 6 months of our ascendancy. Then we talked about repairing and putting on our routes buses that were down. For that, we received $300,000 United States dollars through the FY 2024 budget. As we speak, we repaired successfully 13 of the 15 buses we said we were going to repair. We got one, the 14th one now is under repair. We were able to purchase 2 generators to help propel the repair work. We got a 20 kVA generator and then later a 100 kVA generator. That because of that, we have constant power down on the MTA compound. So sometimes someone will ask, We promised that we will have repaired 15 of the damaged buses. We'll be talking about 13, and the 14th one is now under repair. Why? The pace became slower when the parts began to arrive. We had to order the parts from India, where the buses came from. And when those parts began to arrive immediately, we set to work. Our mechanics will begin the repair process. And then we found out that prior to the parts coming and our assessment of the buses at the time, the wirings of those buses were all intact. So we did not factor in our cost of repairing the buses. We did not factor in rewiring the buses. But we found out that at the time of repair, somebody had gone into the buses and cut all the wires of the buses. So then we have to go back to rewire the buses. So it increased our cost and it took us a longer time. In addition to that, there is something we call a wheel drum. For those who own vehicles will know that something holding the tires, there's a round ring that is holding the tires. More than 80% of them were so as scrap. We have to go into the various scrap. We have to retrieve those wheel drums to put them back on the buses. Even the wheel nut, those that again own cars, when you put the tire on, there is something you screw on to hold the tire. They were also. We had to purchase a new set of tools and some other equipment because equipment that were in the garage for the repair work were packed in a container, and the entire container was sold also with all the equipment in them. So as we speak, on our route now we have 13 of those repair buses, and in a week or so we will be 14 because we will complete the other one. We are spraying them in the garage. Corporate governance, when we took over, as we said in August, we requested the General Audit Commission to commission an entry audit. We ourselves took stock of what we met, but to authenticate what we met from a statutory entity, we requested the GAC to move in to conduct an entry audit to verify what we will say tomorrow. The Auditor General was magnanimous. He sent a team of auditors. They conducted the audit. We just wrote them 2 weeks back, asking for the result, the report of that audit, so that we can use it to guide our own operations. We have completed the HR manual that was not at the entity. It's now being printed, and it will be further printed into handbooks that will be distributed to all the employees. At the same time, we are concluding on the compensation metrics. We don't want an incident at the entity where you employ somebody and then you will be looking for what salary to pay them. The salary will already be in that metrics, and at the same time, the metrics will help us to create harmony among people with similar qualification and performing similar services to receive similar compensation. We also completed all our standard operation procedures for all the departments to guard their functions at the entity. We successfully completed the 5-year strategic plan, the plan that is going to outline what we intend to see the entity after 5 years. We have just completed something that is considered performance management and compliance system introduced by the Office of the President through the Director of the Cabinet. We completed our service delivery. We were one of those entities that completed our tax for the period 2024. Right now, as I speak, we have a functional website as a result of that. We have a building that outline all our activities that we provide to the service, to the public. If we have a website, you can go on the website and get any information you want about the entity. In fact, we're talking there, the strategic plan is in print. We'll put that plan up on our website so that you can see where we want NTA to go in the next 5 years. Capacity building, yes, we met the entity. As I said, we're not going back to what we said, but we try to improve on the capacity of the employees we met there. Training, we organize several trainings, and we are organizing more. We have invited professionals to talk to our drivers, the mechanics, the contractors, customer service personnel. We created a health and occupational safety section that was never at the entity. And with that, in our 2025 budget, we are going to outsource employees, health insurance. The bid is over, the company have been selected. We are writing on the PPCC to validate the process and then award the contract to the vendors so that our employees now will have health insurance. And in that package will be an employee and independent. So the employee will decide who's that dependent will be. We work along with Legis. Previously, we had bus signs around Monrovia in this environment. There are people that cut all those signs for scrap. We are beginning to re-engage to place those signs back. We have completed Kakata. Shortly, we'll be putting the bus on the Kakata route. We'll be putting our signs back, and we continue to educate the public. You know, when I was coming up, we had something in town called Holy buses. And they name them Holy because if you stop anywhere, just tell the driver saying, I'm stopping here. No, NTA is not going to run like that. NTA is going to stop at this stopping point where you see NTA stop sign. And we shortly begin to install all those signs, and we've eventually continuously educating the public that the buses will only stop at a designated sign. We have about 402 employees. We met only two sets of restrooms, 2 rooms, one set for senior management, and just 2 rooms for the rest of the employees, which in our mind was adequate for sanitation purposes. And so today, we have initiated the construction of a 6-room restroom facility. As we speak, they are roofing it now. And I'm sure in the next 2 weeks or so, we'll have that ready to reduce the issue of employees being jammed to use restroom facility and the gym. We said when we took over the entity, there was the administrative building of the entity was buttered on fire, went down completely to the ground. So for this reason, my two deputies and I, we are squatting in the garage. For the past 1 year, we have been working from the garage. In 2024, we tendered out a bid for the construction of the administrative building, and for some technical reasons, the Public Procurement and Concession Commission, PPCC, queried some of the processes that we went through, and so it stalled the process. But 2 months back, we got a clearance from the PPCC that we can go ahead with the construction. They have satisfied the very vendor that we selected, that they have problem with. We have cleared that same vendor to carry on the construction. So for that, we had to redo the contract and then send it to the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning as per the Public Financial Management Law. Any amount that is to be spent, especially from the GOL, it should be signed by the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Justice. So the Ministry of Finance signed that, and yesterday, the Minister of Justice also signed, and we received the contract. So the contractor, we invite the contractor by next week to come in and start this mobilization for the construction of the administrative building. There's a training room we had there because of the absence of an administrative building. The training room was converted into administrative building. So we want to revise that, and so that we can use our administrative building and then use the training room for the purpose for which it was intended. We purchased 3 brand new buses. We did the order in the latter part of 2024, and those buses arrived in 2025 in January. We were to clear them, insure them, register them, and they are now on our routes. So that is on 3 routes. We had a route from Boystown all the way to Broad Street, but that route was closed because there were no buses sent there. So we sent one of the 3 buses on that route. We sent another one on the route from Pool River Street to Monrovia, and the third from Red Line to Monrovia. At least that will help to ease some of the transportation problems, although not enough, but we are moving one step at a time. Those 3 buses cost us $225,000. In fact, we purchased them they were on sale through Alliance Motor, who obtained the dealership of Tata India. As we put those 3 buses on the road, we are aware that they are not enough, so we are now arranging for additional buses. We contacted the Indian consulate here. The buses we met there that I said was down, that we were repairing, they were given to the Liberian government as a grant. They were free buses, but for now, those opportunities are not yet available to receive free buses. So we are now contemplating on looking on the other side. instead of free buses, we have to buy the buses. And so we are partnered with a company called ABK Incorporated so that we can procure through them 35 pieces of 62-seater buses, 20 pieces of 18-seater buses, and 5 pieces of cargo trucks. We are close to consummating that deal. In fact, a contract drawn up between ABK Incorporated and the National Transit Authority have been signed by both parties and then countersigned by the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Justice. We will be initially paying to the vendor 500,000 United States dollars through our appropriation for the fiscal year budget 2025. It is to my knowledge that just before coming here, the documents for the initial payment is close to finalization, and I'm sure in the next 2 weeks that money will be made available to the vendor, and then the ordering process will begin. There are 35 pieces of 62-seater buses, each of them